Hi, hello. I'm Saujanya from And Consulting. This is the fourth episode of our Next Gen Visionaries podcast. Through this podcast, we intend to capture journeys and insights of visionaries shaping the future of Indian businesses. Kalyan Swaroop is a good friend and a great client we have worked with over the years. He has a unique journey where he started his career with being a consultant like me and transitioned into hardcore project execution. Today, as Director of Mahati Infra Services, he brings a unique blend of industry insights and entrepreneurial drive to shape India's future. Hi Kalyan, thank you so much for agreeing to be on this podcast.
Hi Saujanya, it is my pleasure to be on the podcast.
We have had many of these conversations in your office, so we are trying to bring it to audience today through this podcast. But there are few things about your journey which are very unique, and I always had a lot of interest to dig deeper and find out your thinking and your thought process in terms of the decision making. So today it's an opportunity for me to delve a little more into what makes a leader like you, right? So let's jump into without further. I've had a ringside view into your entrepreneurial journey. I've seen you grow along with your business, the way you've transformed over the years and all of that. There must have been many pivotal moments. What is the most transformational moment that you have gone through, and what were you going through when it was happening? Basically, any pivotal or transformation moments are very scary when you look it forward, but when you in retrospection they are beautiful, right? So I want to understand one of such pivotal moments in your journey.
So first of all, I am glad to be here, and it is very true that we have shared a long journey. I have also seen the journey of And from the day you started, and we have worked on several projects together. And it is very true that, we've grown together and grown a long way. So to answer your question, I want to give a small background. So my childhood, my father was a government servant. He was in Indian Oil Corporation, and he resigned from Indian Oil, and we started the company more or less together in 2011. Before 2011, I did my MBA from IMT Ghaziabad. I passed out. I used to work in corporates. Like you said, first I was in Idea Cellular, then I moved to KPMG. Then we started the company. So like you said, we have had several pivotal moments. I would say they are something like crucible moments, which basically changes the path of where you're going to after that particular step. Either you're going very high or very down. Basically, we have had several critical moments like that across our entrepreneurial journey. So we do a lot of projects in Africa in the oil and gas space, marine and ports and all that. So we were affected by several geographical factors which were beyond our control. For example, I'll just explain one instance. I think in the year 2014, we were working in a country called Liberia in the West Africa. It is a very challenging location because of it's a poor country and there's a lot of problems there, and we were working for a very big company called ArcelorMittal. So we were doing their storage facilities, and in their mines we were working. And we had this disease called Ebola come to our place, and we were almost 400-500 people working from our side in the site.
Scary.
And the first step was, I was also there in Liberia at the time. The first step was, as an individual and as a people, as a person heading a company with all our staff and workers and all that, my primary motive was to make sure my people are safe and we move. But at the same time, what was looming in my head is also the future, right? Because now we are not going to be conducting business as usual, because that was a major stream of revenue for us at that point of time, and it was going to be frozen. So we didn't know, we had no other projects. So that was a very critical time for us. And at that moment...
And you had 400 people's lives at stake and also their salaries at stake. Both ways.
Yes, so that is one such instance. And at those instances, we came up with some sort of, what I would say, plans that basically, in fact, stepped our company's potential in a bigger way. In a way, people looking at it from a distance would say it is mad. But I would say that is what differentiates some companies from the others. So we strongly believe that we've had several such crucible moments, one of them which I explained right now. And then we have had several others over a period of time. And we now have several group companies working with boards and with several people and we have reached a certain stage.
So, I mean, it's very interesting where you left the story, right? I want to know more. Like, how did you manage?
So at that stage of time, we had some 2, 3 projects going on. One of them being ArcelorMittal was a major revenue for us with good profits and all that, and everything had to be put on hold. But then at that moment, we conceived a project in Uganda to invest almost $100+ million, which was a very distant dream for us. And we came up with that project over a evening tea with somebody. We were sitting about a map on Lake Victoria and all that, and we suddenly realized that we can establish a fuel transportation platform, or a project for reducing fuel transportation costs in that East African region. And that then we pursued strongly, and then we conceived that project. In the meanwhile, this project recommenced. So while these were happening, we were trying to protect ourselves, but at the same time, our dreams were not diminished. We were not really caught up. I think I would rather say that we had to survive. So basically, it was just that spirit that we had to move ahead, and our whole progress cannot be stopped. Like I said, most of these are impractical. Most of these, if I have to put it in a business plan and give it to somebody, it's not going to make any sense. But I mean, I think these are those critical crucible moments.
Yeah, the spirit kept you going, the spirit kept the team going. And I know of this project that you're talking about. Who would
In fact,
think
you
of
came
a
to
ship
Uganda.
across a lake?
You came to Uganda, in fact.
I
You
had
did
the
the.
opportunity of coming there. And who would think of building a ship in a lake? Like, really needs a little bit of creative set of mindset to come up with such a project. And I know the advantage, the financial and economic advantage it has given to the country. It has cut down the transportation cost by about 60%. So it's an extraordinary project. You've conceived it I didn't know that you conceived it in the lowest point in your journey. That is even more inspiring for me, because when you're upset about something, coming out with creative ideas becomes that much more difficult. So how do you manage that kind of balance? Like, how do you get that equanimity to be able to bear the stress and also be creative at the same time?
I think today if you ask me this question around 5, 6 years ago, I would answer it differently. Today, I would answer it differently, because at that point of time, I was still going through that. But what I can sort of think is that if you think a lot about what may happen, or, people get anxious. Anxiety is a very big problem. That is a very big deterrent, I feel. I feel that doing things reduces stress. I mean, I have heard several big personalities say across, in speeches and all that. I think if we are focused on doing something persistently and consistently, and as long as we believe that the goal where what we have kept for ourselves is sustainable and it is profitable also, then we should keep trying. Because I strongly believe that when we do some of these projects, it is very easy to lose the end goal, because we are so much stuck in the details and nitty-gritties of operations that we will forget what are we even working for. So I think one of the abilities that really helped us succeed was our ability to go deep when it was required and come out and have a eagle's eye view when it was required. So basically that role we keep playing consistently every day for every activity for many days. Like, for example, I may have somebody come to me and say, my HR policy has a certain problem. Can you have a look at it? My staff comes and says, but somebody comes and says, I want to have a 5-year view of what this goal is getting to. So when you have that ability to do that multiple times every day on different projects over a period of time, you will sort of get to a position where you can handle these things more efficiently.
It's a beautiful thought that you mentioned. Zoom in when required and zoom out when you want to see the big picture, long-term view and all of that. And also I've read this book called Power of Now, which says forget about focusing too much into the future and be anxious about it. Just come back to the present, focus on what is in your hand, do it now, and then it will impact your future. It will change the direction of your future. And so both the thoughts are so beautifully expressed by you, and I take away from this conversation. So, I want to dial into your consulting life. You have done consulting in your earlier avatar before you started this entrepreneurial journey with your father. How does it help you? Does this consulting view help you in the big picture, or how is it different from what you are doing today? Because consulting is also about a lot of advisory and less of implementation, whereas an entrepreneurial journey is a lot more about making things happen. So, how do they interplay for you, and what do you think you attribute back to your consultant journey?
If I have to be really honest with you,
You not learned anything?
consulting has not been very, I don't think I have, what I can say is, I have had a very brief journey at working in a company for some other companies. I have not had a very long stint of employment. I finished my MBA in 2008 and I worked till 2011. That's only for 3 years. Idea Cellular was Aditya Birla Group. It is a very set of Indian way of working. It's a big government. It's a private government, you can say. But when I went to KPMG, I learned a lot of about international systems. I learned a lot about risk and credit and risk analysis and those kind of parameters, which were not existent in my previous role. Like basically KPMG and all these consulting companies, they have a certain way of working where they process risk and what I would say is governance in a very strong manner.
Yeah.
So that helped me to develop my systems at a later date in my entrepreneurial journey. But as such for consulting, I don't think I have really, I'm sorry to say that, but yes.
No problem. I don't take it personally, so it's all right. EPC itself is a very hardcore industry. You are dealing with so many variables on the ground: people, material, tools, the land, the climate. So many things that you're dealing with, right? And oil and gas is even more challenging. So, what made you differentiate in this line of work, and how did you establish yourself? Because it's also, EPC is also a competitive industry. There are a lot of EPC players which are already existing. So, what do you think few levers that made you compete and coexist?
So I think if I have to put it in a very simple way, any entrepreneur, leave me, any business, any person who owns a business needs to look at the most important parameter, which is profits. To sustain, to differentiate, to develop new products, you need to have sufficient bottom line. So basically my target from the day we started the company has always been looking at a good profitability.
Today
And
startups may not agree, but yeah, let's go with it.
No, that's something even I don't understand, but keeping aside industry's fundamentals, I would say, but I don't know about. I think in a long term, I think everybody needs to get there effectively, right? It's like today, maybe you go through a curve, different curves. So like some people go high on volume, then over a period of time come back. But at the end of the day, everybody wants profits, right? Basically, those days of top line are now gone. People now want bottom line. So if I have to say bottom line, you need to do something different from others for you to have that profit, right? One is you do products that are not being done by others, so mainly technology products, or basically doing something which is not there in the market, like new technology. You're bringing some technology from the West or developing it yourself and developing. That is one. If you have that, you can command bottom line. Second thing, you take a very common service and go to a weird place like Africa and develop it there, like what I have done. Yeah. Then because there is nobody else doing that, it becomes a special product there and you start to get margins. That is one. Then third thing is find an industry where there are not many players. So that is also what we did. We got oil and gas. We had many players. Nowadays there are not many players in oil and gas contracting. It used to be, but now not many are there. Then you at the same time finding other industries which can relate with your industry. Like for example, we entered ports, we entered shipping, we entered marine. All of them has steel. So we were good in steel and then we branched out. So that sort of, if one thing doesn't work, the other one protects. Right? That was one thing we did. Then the fourth one, what we did was develop assets, invest wisely. With the money what we got, we invested into assets that added further value to our bottom line. So basically what we did over a period of time was always make sure that you have cash in hand to do innovation or R&D or new projects or do these kind of things. That is when you will really become big, sustainably big, and you can continue to demand those margins. So we chose Africa as our place for, like you said, how did we survive in EPC, oil and gas? And I personally used to do welding also in the site. I know the field. I have done all welding, I've done all painting, grinding, I've done in the site. So we knowing as owners, knowing technical things also reduce costs. Like for example, because you dependent on other people in a technical industry, they can take you for a ride. So when you know it yourself, you can control costs better. So there are not one few set of things, but at the end of the day, the whole parameter is have profits that are substantial for you to play around.
I am so tied into one point that you mentioned. You said go to a market which is hungry for this service, go to an industry where there is not too much competition. It is not easy sitting here in India thinking about a market like Africa because there is so much of lack of understanding or lack of connect, network. Anything could be a challenge, right? So how did you navigate through this entry into African market? And what were some of the initial challenges and how did you overcome those challenges?
Again, there is no logical answer to it. It is less thinking. It is minimal thinking. So I remember still when we did a very big project in Gabon, Central Africa.
Yeah.
And the project came through a phone call from somebody from there, and they called my procurement man and they said, we have a project in Gabon. It's for an oil terminal on the port and all that. I told they sent the call to me. My father was like, these things are too complicated. We don't know when these things take shape. So I had a phone call and I told him I'm going to Gabon. But that is when I opened the map and I looked, where is Gabon?
Where Gabon?
So I didn't know where it was. So basically we just went, and I think a lot of times there are many good people in the world, many good things happening, but a lot of our media and the way what we look at things, it is very pessimistic for us to take chance. Actually, if we all roam through the world enough, we know that there are more good people than bad people, right? So it's always the bad people is a very small percentage. So these kind of countries are stable, safe mostly, unless you go into a bad area, which can even happen in India. So basically, I strongly believe that in the goodness of the people, and I trust people to a good extent, those kind of things. But I am very sure that Africa has ample opportunities for everyone, and having the drive to go and visit these places, and you will get a lot of opportunities. I think the moment you are ready to take that initiative, I have seen that things fall in place. I mean, I don't want to sound spiritual or like a philosopher or something, but I will just say that where there is a will, there is a way is definitely true.
Yeah. Be ready to open the door always.
Yes.
That's a good takeaway. Yeah. So, in the oil and gas industry, because you delve very deeply into this industry, I'm asking you, what are some of the untapped opportunities? What are those things people aspiring to get into this industry should look at? What are the underserved areas? Like you might be needing a vendor, you might be needing a partner, you're not finding somebody, you're dependent on external resources, international resources for this. So are there any areas like that where this oil and gas industry requirements could be fulfilled by aspiring entrepreneurs?
So in India, we have 4-5 industries which, or even globally, there are 4-5 industries where there is a innet entry barrier. One, because of high capital. Second is high government bureaucracy, and you have huge competitors. Like if what we are doing in some places, we compete with the Totals and Shells. In some places in India, you compete with the L&Ts. So basically, then in places you compete with government barriers itself. So entering this field is
not easy.
not like just going and I want to sell something or something. It doesn't work like that. First thing. So, but nowadays we have several introduction of technology into our industry. Our industries are considered to be very conventional industries. So one is technical automation, which we are already doing for our welding and common activities. We are basically sort of making it automatic. That is one thing which we require support. Then second thing is we also work on robotics related solutions. Like I recently invested in a company where we developed a painting robot over huge areas, and we are now currently implementing that painting robot in our site.
Wonderful.
And then we talk about things like what is happening today related to AI and VR, AR. Those kind of things have a huge application in our potential in oil and gas. Like for example, in all our projects, we do 3D walkthroughs. So if we can do a VR related walkthrough of an oil terminal or a compressor room or a pipeline manifold, so many things, so many places, so many applications are there. So these things are some things which can be done, of course, with the good data protection related infrastructure in place. That is something which I see very strongly can be done for startups and things like that. But otherwise, if you want to get into the core of this industry, you need to handle those barriers of high capital, of high government bureaucracy, and it's not a very straight world. It's in these industries if you want to enter properly. So, but for the startup ecosystem, I believe that these are some of the opportunities.
Got it. Very useful. I think people are listening and are going to work on these things. It makes all our lives easier, right? So I wish for that. But you guys have moved from EPC and moved into projects. You've also expanded into renewables and many other sectors in the process, right? So how did these kind of bets start taking shape? And also you touched slightly upon financing. You have a very different principle of financing your projects. A little bit of shedding light on how do you make your financial decisions, like how do you decide about a project, basically what is the financial evaluation you do, back of the envelope or any high level analysis that you do before accepting a project, and how you finance them, because I know that you have been able to successfully get funding from international banks and institutions like AFDB and the likes of it, right? So little bit thought process in terms of your framework.
So what was the first part? The second part was about funding. The first part was?
The first part is about deciding about projects, like
Yeah,
how do you make the decision about projects, and then how do you finance them.
So basically, one of the things which in the earlier phase we did not realize we were doing that, what we realized later was we wanted to do projects that had substantial impact on the economy of one of the countries wherever we produce. Like for example, if we work in Africa, the countries have certain problems that are strategic in nature. Like for example, in one of the countries we saw, one of the bigger countries we know, like South Africa, they have fuel storage for hardly 2 weeks. I am talking about a few years ago. That is all. If they don't get a ship within 2 weeks, they run dry. Right? So these are some of the strategic issues of the country. So when you address a strategic economic problem, all your problems are taken care of, like funding, like your profitability, like your all those issues, whatever you mentioned is difficult, becomes very easy because you have now become a very necessary part of the entire ecosystem. So basically, like right now we are developing our own port in India, you are aware. So basically what you're trying to do is putting your foot in the shaping the future of that country,
That location.
that place or whatever that is. So basically, if you do projects that have that kind of an effect, raising money is not a very critical issue until you reach a scale. So basically, when you reach scale, you can easily raise money. You see all these big guys today you have one of the biggest corporations in India, any company who does 1,000+ crores, money, people come to us now, right? Banks come to us to give us money. But how do you even get there? Right? So basically, how do you become big? That is where the struggle is. So once to get there, you need to do something which is really impactful so that one, it is sustainable, and then you are able to create an impact on the surroundings around you. That is when your projects, that is the kind of projects I choose.
So there are two things that are tying back to your decision making for me. One is micro decisions, zooming in, zooming out, being able to go into details of the next thing that your next ball you're going to swing. Also looking at your long-term strategy in terms of how you're going to score, how are you playing defense, how are you going to beat this whole match, right? So it's nice. So one very interesting thing I always wonder is, It's very rare that father-son combination become co-founders. How do you manage your dual roles? How do you split responsibilities and how do you make this work so beautifully?
No, I think the credit goes to my father more than me because from the day I have been there, I have got complete freedom from him. He has let me spread my wings at all times, and I have made mistakes. He has made mistakes, and during those phases, we have been softer and nicer to each other because we all know that at the end of the day, we all make mistakes. So, how we treat each other during the time when the other person is low is what defines a relationship as per me. So when we have had lower times, I think we have always lifted each other up. I think that has been, and the credit completely goes to him because he has always been receptive, he has always been positive, and he has always trusted me to do those things. And some credit goes to me because I've kept up that trust, I think.
If not broken it or thrown it away.
I may have sometimes, but I've always made up for it. And we have been in a very, our mindset has been very, we were brought up with the government. My father was in government while we were growing up. So we still have those things. Those things don't go away.
The value
So
system,
yes,
discipline.
yes, and but I think one of the things we have never done is we have never cried on anything for a long period. Like for example, there were times when we have lost real money. There are times when if I have to sit and talk those numbers, they'll be really sad in some days. So a lot of people would say, but we were never really bothered. We always said it's okay, we'll make it up, and we always did. So I think those kind of things we both think alike, and moreover, we speak a lot with each other. For me, he's the boss, and when he says something, I don't intervene. So we have our lines, and it was clear in our minds. It was very natural, and we stay in the same house, my parents and me, and we talk to each other every day. And I tell him what has happened, he tells me what has happened, and we try to critique each other a lot. We fight inside each other, we fight a lot. But to the outside people, for them, they know 100% sure that when they say something to me or they say something to him, they will get the same response.
It's
So
such a
that way
beautiful
is,
way of managing. You are one single unit to the world, but to each other you are critics and you are somebody who would support each other in your lowest of the lows, the guilt trips that you are taking. You are uplifting each other, but also fighting them down when you don't agree with each other, right? It's a very good balance. I would like to appreciate you for. I mean, you have given all the credit to Sir. You have given all the credit to Ravi Sir, but I think you also have reciprocated a lot, and you know your boundaries quite well. You are like keeping within your boundary, playing your game inside those boundaries, and also respecting where it is deserved and giving value to the experience, right? So a lot of youngsters don't realize the value and insight, the intuition that comes along with the experience. So I think a lot of credit goes to you, and thank you so much for sharing such a personal experience. It is useful to our viewers because a lot of them are into family businesses, and they take away a lot from this. So I have had a wonderful time talking to you. Thank you so much for
me
taking
too.
this time for us, and look forward to see you be part of your journey going forward. I wish you best for you and Mahati Infra as well.
Thank you, Saujanya. I think I had a good time speaking with you. And also for the young entrepreneurs who want to get into entrepreneurship, I would like to say that, if you believe that your idea has potential and profitability and scaling up ability, there are certain critical questions you must ask, and then you must be perseverant. Think less, act more, and I wish all of you the very best, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. Been really pleasure to talk to you on this podcast, and look
My
forward
pleasure.
to many more conversations with you. Thanks for those
Thank,
messages to the audience.
thank
Bye.
you.